Welcome back to the story of Crime Talk. I hope the whole family is well and taking care of themselves. 54 years ago, there was a murder during that time. The police team continuously investigated that murder. All the suspects were interrogated. But weeks, months, years passed. But the killer's trace wasn't found slowly. The whole investigation came to a halt with several years past. Police didn't know where to find the killer, but one thing was good, and that is that all the evidence collected from the crime scene is kept in a storeroom under the supervision of the police. The murderer not found. When 52 years passed, the case is being mocked by forensic teams and detectives. They look at the old cases and question what are the cases that are still a problem for them, and that they could not solve, and that they could not bring justice. There are many cases like this, including the case of the murder of 54 years ago. The case is again considered. The detective team is also involved, and it is said that it is now time to solve the case of 54 years ago. Because one thing was present, and that was all the things related to the crime scene. And among all those things, there was a very small thing, a cigarette butt. The story begins in 1971. A 24-year-old girl named Rita Cran. Rita Cran was from a good family. In 1971, she left her parents and went to Vermont. She had already completed college there. After coming there, she was a second-grade teacher. She started working in a school in Vermont. But along with this job, she also studied further. She also worked in a motel for her expenses. So she left her parents' home and went to an unknown city. And then she did her job and studied. Along with that, she was a second-grade teacher. She was only 24 years old. And there in that same city, Vermont is an American state. In the same city, in its capital, she starts living in an apartment on rent. The apartment where she lived had 3 other girls. 3 were unknown to her, and 3 were unknown to the other 3. So they used to live in the same apartment. The atmosphere at that time was very good. People were far from crime. They were carefree. They could even open the door and come anywhere. So Rita Cran also knew these things, but her life was so hectic. Education, then teaching, then part-time. Working in a motel. She didn't get time. She just slept in the apartment. Then one night of 19th July 1970, one Rita Cran's 3 apartment partner, a room partner, they had gone for late night parties. Rita Cran was alone at motel. Late night, when her first partner returns, she screamed. The door to the house was open. Rita Cran's body was on the floor. Blood was flowing out of her body. There was bandage on her neck. Room partner ran away, screaming. Rest of the people came to the crime scene. The police are called. It seemed that she was raped and then murdered. The killer killed him very badly. Now the detectives reached. Everything is taken away from the room as evidence. People are questioned. It's about 1971, so there was no set TV, camera, etc. The police questioned all the apartments. Who was the last person? Where was she found? And the friends of Rita are questioned. After all these questions, the police zero in 13 such people who raised some doubts. The reason for the doubt was that they were the people whom Rita Cran met for the last time, or they were seen with Rita, or they were in an apartment for the last time. Crime is often the last call or the last thing before the crime. It is in the circle of suspicion. There were similar things at that time, although there was no mobile or forensic science. So, there was interrogation from all the people. The police zeroed in 13 people. They were interrogated separately from the 13 people. But from the statements of those 13 people, we came to know that when the murder took place, then their presence was somewhere else. And all the people were there to testify. So in one time, one person cannot be in 2 places. Now it is very possible that the witness is lying. But the police used all their machinery to reach the murderer. and to know the reason for the murder. Now, they tried to find out the reason for the murder, but one thing that came out was that there was a rape in the post-mortem report. So this means that the motive was rape, but the one who did the rape is someone who knows. So the police tried to solve this case in this way. All the evidence had been taken. There, a cigarette butt was found near the body. Now, we came to know that Rita doesn't smoke. He also found out that no one in his room smokes. So the police thought that the cigarette butt could be of the killer. Rita's clothes and other things were kept safe so that they could be used in the case. Many days passed and the killer was not found. After this, Rita was buried according to her religious tradition. The police continued to work on the case. There was time. Many detectives came and went, but this case was not solved. And at that time, the fear of this case was that in this city where Rita lived, people were very fearless. But this scary murder and rape case of Rita scared people. They would lock their doors and check if they were locked. So this situation of terror in the city was created by the murder. It was the police's responsibility to catch the killer so that they could get rid of the fear in the hearts of the people. But despite all the efforts, the killer was not being caught. The police gave them clean sheets of all the suspects. A year had passed. In 50 years, the police could not solve the Rita murder case. After 50 years, in fact in 2018, there was a meeting. The detectives and all the people were sitting. They said that some old cases of the city should be considered. And in America, it often happens that in the old cases, there is a review meeting in the background. So if something happens in old cases, then they would move the case forward. So in 2018, in a similar way, in a review meeting, Rita's case came in front of the detective there in Vermont. Now, when Rita's case came in front, then we came to know that nothing has happened yet. There is no progress in the investigation. All the suspects have been released. After reviewing, the detective said that when the file related to this case was read, it was found that many evidence related to this case is still in storage, and such cases were kept under control of the property. So it was decided that they would reopen this case. Let's go and see what's written in this paper. Maybe we will get some help. The detective team arrives in the storage room and looks at everything. There are Rita Curry's clothes, cigarette butts, and other things. This is up to 2018. Science has progressed in meantime. DNA technology has become very hi-fi. It was not so much in that time. There are many DNA samples in the data bank. This is common in America. It is common in many countries. So the youths take out these things. Cigarette cup. The easiest thing was that you could catch the DNA through it. So then, through the new DNA technique, that Lark's cigarette was sent to be identified. That whether it matches with someone or not, all these things were going on. It took some time. When the cigarette was made, in this time, DNA found was matched with a male. It was sent to New York City. After that, it was said that let's get the DNA out of the male's data. So when they searched in the database, the DNA of the people in the database of America was not matched with any of the other males. That means that the person in the database had no DNA in America. So it was very strange that one person was matched. But the sample of DNA of all the people in the database was not of that person. Now, the efforts continued even after this through the forensic team. In 2022, it was opened in 2018. After 2022, the police kept doing a lot of things in it silently with the help of forensic experts. In 2022, it happened that suddenly, with the help of this cigarette butt, we found out that it was a male. How to get further information? Because Databank is not getting it. So when this murder happened of Rita, the clothes that she wore were stored in storage as evidence. Now, the detective team picks up the clothes and sends them to the forensic experts. DNA experts and says that now the new technique that you have, if you think that you can get more DNA from these clothes, then you can get help from them. So those clothes and the DNA samples were found in the clothes of Rita. Now, the genealogy expert did the full investigation. After the investigation, the DNA found was matched with a person in the data bank. The name of that person was William D. Rouse. Now, when the police matched, they found the address. The second thing matched. In 1971, William used to live near the same place, same city and same apartment. So these two things can't be coincidental. Now, for the first time, the team thought that we have done a very good job. It's been almost 54 years now that this case has been resolved, but they started to investigate about him. Slowly, the police team started to investigate. The investigation started. After the investigation, they found out who William DeRose was. After the investigation, William's story came out. They found out that when Rita stayed in that apartment, William stayed a little bit away from her. 15 days before Rita's murder, William got married, and after marriage, he was living in a rented house near his wife's apartment. On the night of the murder of Rita, on the 9th July, the story of that night was to be told. Where was she on the 9th July? Where was her presence? William married this lady. The police reached her. William hadn't been arrested yet. They went to her and asked her that William D. Rouse, you got married in 1970. And these people got married in the month of June. And Rita was murdered on the 9th of July. And they got married in the 3rd week of June. So she said, yes, I got married. And when he was asked where he was on the night of 9th July, he said that he had a fight with William on the night of 9th July. After that fight, he left home in anger. After leaving home, he returns early in the morning. He came back and then went to sleep. Since there was a fight between us, there was no conversation. He also left in anger. Okay, this was a bit of a criminal background. Many times the police had already found him in some beatings and all that. Once a lady was stabbed with a knife. So he said, look, a murder has taken place in a neighborhood. So if the police come and ask, then you tell them that I didn't go anywhere last night. I was here. Because they will get me trapped because I have already been in the police list in old cases. So his wife also knew that police can harass him. But she was sure that he would not do anything like that. But in the end of July, both of them separated. William separated and left his wife. And William went to Thailand from there. Meanwhile, William's wife had married again. So we found out that he had reached Thailand. After going to Thailand, he became a monk there and started living there. Once in 1974, he returned to the US when he went to Shrot before becoming a monk. And then we found out that he had another wife who lived in the US. So he came to meet her and went back to Thailand and started living there as a monk. The police thought that they would reach William and solve the 54-year-old case on William's family. But then a big and bad news came out. And it was found that in 1986, William D. Rouse died due to overdose of drugs. That means that he died after 15 years of Rita's murder. He died after 15 years in 1986. And after Rita's murder 54 years later, due to the new DNA technology, a cigarette butt gave a proof that a male's DNA was found. Then Rita's clothes gave another clue, and due to that database, DNA was found. Then he was found from William, so police reached there, even the wife. But despite all this, the killer of Rita, God would have punished her by giving her a legal punishment. Because Rita's family wanted to know who did this to her daughter, who is the murderer, who is the rapist, so that they can find peace in this answer. Many times these questions are very disturbing if someone is a criminal. That who did it? What did it? If the answer is not received, then the person is more restless and worried. But 54 years later, the Vermont police called Rita's sister. And 2 days ago, a press conference was held and William's picture was shown in that press conference. The whole story was told the forensic team, the doctors who solved this case in the investigation. They were also present there, and then it was told in detail how they have solved the 54-year-old murder case. And this way, now this case was closed. It was also to be closed